Hello, everybody, and welcome to Bright Founders Talk at Temi. Temi is an international software development company that designs, builds, and delivers software for sustainable businesses and promising startups. Welcome to our podcast, where we bring you the most inspiring stories of entrepreneurs and experts in the software development industry. And each week, we interview successful leaders who share their unique journeys and valuable insights. I'm your host, Barry, and today we're lucky enough to have an amazing guest joining us, Jorge Palomar, co-founder and CEO of Galtea. Hello, welcome to the podcast, Jorge.
Thank you very much for having
I
me.
hope my pronunciation was good enough. I did test it beforehand, but I'm not sure if we give that a 7 or a 6 or whatever.
It was amazing. Yeah, it was amazing.
Perfect. You're too kind, my friend. So first of all, for those people who don't know you or your company, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and the company that you founded?
Of course. So I'm Jorge, as you mentioned, one of the co-founders at Galtea. We are a Spanish company that helps large organizations to validate their AI solutions. So what this means in practice is that we provide the quality assurance stack so that they can test their AI products or AI solutions with a data-first approach. So we help a lot on creating and building high-quality context-aware data that it's ready to test any kind of Gen AI system, especially.
What was of particular interest to you? So did you go out thinking, do you know what, I want to start like an AI validation, data validation company, or was it something that you just happened to come across?
So yeah, that's an interesting question. So my background is technical. This is something that I didn't mention. I'm a computer engineer myself, and my co-founder is PhD in astrophysics. Both of us met on the Barcelona Supercomputing Center, which is a Spanish national supercomputing center and one of the most important supercomputing centers in the world, where basically they manage one of the most powerful supercomputers out of the big tech. And then there's a lot of research teams built around or doing science around those supercomputing facilities. So we both of us met working there in the supercomputing center in the language technologies lab. So around 3 years ago, we were already working on LLMs. So training LLMs from scratch, adapting existing LLMs, building prototypes on top, and so on. And as you can imagine, we struggled and experienced firsthand all the problems that around the reliability of those models, especially whenever you are trying to bring them to production with an industry partner, for instance, a bank or a public administration. So we started to work already in BSc on building this quality assurance stack as an internal tool for us. And then eventually we decided that this is not helpful only for us as developers or engineers, but also it can be helpful for every single developer in the world. And that's why we decided to create the company, to create Galtea. So yeah, it was pretty natural, the process.
Did you always want to be a co-founder or a CEO? Was that something in your blood?
I think it's been more like I've been always very curious. I always try to do things that were. I always say something, no? Like I want to do things that when I'm old, I can remember all of them. So not necessarily wanted to be a founder, but everything that I've done in my life or every important decision that I've made has been with this in my mind. And I think like co-founding a company in such a relevant space is definitely something that I remember the rest of my life. Both beautiful and hard moments. And that's one of the reasons. So always very curious, always trying to do impactful things, not necessarily being a co-founder, but like life took me to this particular path.
Is it a big difference being a co-founder and just being a programmer? Well, it's a completely different set of skills for you, right?
It's crazy the difference. So whenever you are an engineer, you are in a bubble. Like everyone only tells you good things. You are like a part of the business people, just programming or just building your systems. Everyone is amazed with the things that you are capable of doing. And then at some point you become a co-founder and I'm not the CTO, so I'm the CEO. So I started to sell, which is a completely different story. So you become, start to face what business people face every day. And you need not only to adapt your skills, but also to adapt your mindset, right? Because it's a completely different approach. And with the time, I'm still learning, of course, but it's been such a interesting journey.
Are there any experiences that you've had or in your background in your past that have helped to shape like your approach when it comes to building a company and co-founding a company?
Yeah, I'd say that every experience, like professional experience, also even personal, help everyone a little bit to structure their mind and eventually becoming an entrepreneur. In my case, so it's been like being a very active and competitive person in sports that helped me a lot on being ambitious and hardworking in order to achieve a certain goal. So that like being always like have participated in a lot of different sports and with a good performing level, I think that helped a lot. And then professional wise, I think like most of my previous roles were technical, all of them. So what it helped me basically, it's to structure my mind in terms of how to how to solve a problem from a technical perspective, and to have also this engineering mind to approach any kind of problem. So not necessarily a technical one, but also having the same mindset for, I don't know, sales, for finance, for operations, for whatever. So I think, yeah, that engineering experience helped me a lot as well. But of course, there's, as we mentioned before, there's still a lot of things that I need to learn,
Yeah.
and that with the time, you keep learning that, and I think that's completely normal.
So I think that with computer engineering programming, you have to have like a keen mindset and being able to drill down to minute details. But I think with being a co-founder or a leader, you probably need to be a bit more wide scale or larger kind of approach to it. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. But when I was talking about the engineering mindset combined to, so of course you need what you mentioned, right? But if you combine it with an engineering mindset, then you start to, for instance, measure everything. Like you have this, which is I can you need always like to find a trade off, because like, especially when you are in the early days, it's not necessary to measure everything. But once you start scaling your company, I think that's something that it's also very helpful, right? So
Yeah.
not like having this global perspective and business mindset, it's important, but also paying attention to the details, being able to measure everything, make data driven decisions. I think all these kinds of stuff that it's that in my case, having an engineering background helped me a lot.
Mm.
I think those are as important as the others.
Perfect. So we've talked a little bit about you. So now let's move on to the company itself.
Yeah.
So when you introduce Galtea to like a new organization, what are the kind of first steps that you take in helping them to kind of understand the value of data validation and analytics?
First thing is, we always talk to technical teams, right? Because our solution is used by developers, engineers. Okay, so essentially, first approach is always to do the typical discovery of the company and the team, trying to understand if they are experiencing the problem. The problem is basically, in general, like, they are investing money on trying to get GenAI use cases into production to have a real impact and a real return on investment, but they are struggling because they don't have enough evidence to decide if this is ready to go to production,
Mm.
right? That's in general, like, they have this mistrust or this lack of evidence. So first of all, we do that discovery in order to understand if they are investing in GenAI and if they have that particular problem. And once we qualify the company in terms of the problem, and not only the problem but also the size of the problem, it's kind of straightforward. It's I think we have a great product. So if they have the pain, we then move to a demo, and I think, like, most of the cases, we manage to do that fit that much, right? and
Yeah.
and and then they start using. Then the process is, if you are working with a very big enterprise, they always want to try it first on a limited scope, and if you perform or you comply with your you can deliver your promise basically, then they are happy to scale the solution for the whole company. So the process is more like that, more or less like that. The hard part here, I think, is more like the lead generation. So how you able to schedule that discovery in order to talk with the team that is building the solutions and that is potentially experiencing the pain. That's our bottleneck right now. And yeah, not an easy thing, let's say, to approach, but there's different ways to do it, right? Like typical ones, like outbound, like being innovative as well in outbound techniques, being investing as well in brand, in inbound, and in creating community, especially if you're building a developer tool, and then also having and working closely with partners. So these are like the three main channels that everyone probably knows.
When you initially get those leads and you go for those conversations, could you talk to us a little bit about the main problems or pitfalls that companies have with their AI when you first meet them? Do you see any common approaches? Do you see any similar themes?
Yeah, completely. So basically, it's especially in those large companies that I was mentioning, like the trend is more or less like this. So they have this mandate. I don't know if that's a word in English. Mandate, the mandate from the CEO, right? That they need to use AI in the company. Let's say. So then you start to have a lot of business units that they start to present their use cases that are potentially automated with Gen AI. So imagine like you are the customer experience department, right? And then the CEO says everyone should be using AI, and then you come and present your use case and say, all right, we want to automate our our call center or our customer support process, whatever, and also the sales team and also the procurement team and also like every business unit in the company, right? So then what has been like the trend in the past couple of years is to build an AI team, like different from the systems, like the traditional IT or systems team, but still in the technical organization, in the technology organization, that is created to give a response to each of those use cases presented by business units, right? So that AI team has a KPI, which is basically time to production. So whenever you are taking up a AI use case that have been prioritized by management, how long it takes for you to reach production. But also they have the accountability, not only that KPI, but also the accountability of the reliability, security, and so on of the particular system. So that's the common approach that we are seeing everywhere. And the problem is that since there's a lot of things to be done especially in the stack of building these kind of solutions, those AI teams are not being able to get most of the things to productions, as you can see, for instance, in the last report from MIT that has become very famous, of 95% of enterprise POCs fail. So the thing is, they are not able to build enough trust in order to convince everyone to impact real users or to take this to operate a critical activity. So in that point, like when we qualified that the organization is at that particular point, then is when we enter, like when they can hire Galtea in order to say, all right, we are going to give you the evidence that you need in order to make an informed decision if this is ready, or if it is not ready, what you need to improve in order to reach production quicker and also more reliably. And that's the typical trend. Mm-hmm.
So before we were on live on the podcast, we were talking a little bit about preconceptions, and one of my preconceptions was I was very, very enthusiastic and probably not aware of the actual limitations of AI. When you meet up with people, are they quite pragmatic about the limitations, or are they more like I was and like, oh, AI can do everything, we can just let it do everything, off you go? How do you find the customers or stakeholders' approaches about AI when they inject it into their company?
If you look at it like more pragmatically, they are in general starting to see what are the current limitations of the technology. So there's like, of course, it can do like amazing things. We have like a roadmap of those big tech to AGI, but we are still not there. So here there's two things. It's now most of the companies they know and understand most of the limitations of the systems that you can build on top of these technologies. But that said, we are experiencing an exponential improvement of that technology, let's say every 6 months. Because like 4 years ago, no one was expecting something like ChatGPT. Then I'd say like 1 year ago, no one was expecting that models became as good as now in math, for instance. Everyone was saying, no, this is just next token prediction, whatever. But then eventually, like reasoning models come up, and then you start to have like extremely good models for programming or even for doing math. So, like, of course, it has limitations now, but with the pace in improving the technology, and also with all the money that is right now invested in progressing on that regard, I think limitations are every time less
pushed,
or
right?
lower.
Yeah. One of my friends is a coder, and he tells me that he actually uses a language learning model to check his coding, and that just blew my mind. Like how quickly the technology is developing. Like probably in the future, I don't know. Will coders exist? I'm not sure. So we talked about some of the limitations, so let's talk about some of the positives. Like, are there any AI trends that you're really excited about at the moment or in the very near future?
I've already seen use cases in production with reasoning models, like AI agents with reasoning models, doing like actually performing tasks that for me are like, it's incredible that a computer, a machine can do that. Like for me, that I work in tech for a few years, it's incredible what this is capable of. So basically, solving problems end to end without being programmed specifically to do that. So that's basically an agent, right? Like an auto, the way that we know them nowadays, right? Like you request something to it, and just out of reasoning, planning, and using the tools that it has access to, can solve that particular problem end to end without having been like specifically trained or designed to do that. So that's I think that I know that this is a bit general, but this applies to basically everything.
Yeah.
Like it applies to legal sector, because you want to solve or to get insights on a particular case that you are working on as a lawyer. It applies to research, especially, which is like one of the most interesting sectors that I think of applying AI. It can be in finance, it can be in everything, every aspect. But let's say that we take this research part, which is like what, for instance, OpenAI always says, like, we are creating this sort of meme scroll down so that we can then generate profits or revenue in the company, so that then we can build better models, so that those better models improve our research processes, and that we then can achieve the cure to cancer quicker, right? It's like for instance, the argument that they use in OpenAI. And for me, like, being able in my day-to-day now, I don't see that application to research that much, because we work more with law firms, insurance firms, finance firms, and I already see incredible things. But in my view, like, applying this to research and being able to advance research in health, research in physics, this kind of spaces, it's like the most interesting thing for us, and where we should be, if we are optimistic, where we should be doubling down as a society, let's say, not as humans, not only as companies.
So you mentioned there some industries like insurance, financing. Are these the kind of industries that can benefit most from your product, or are there other industries that could also benefit if you put your sales hat on now, Jorge?
So the value that we can add, it's like the perception of the value that we can add is also is very related to the sensitivity of error of an industry. So let's say if you are building a productivity copilot that helps you review your internal notes, then you can, like, the sensitivity to an error, it's not that high. You can assume an error, right? But then if you are working in finance, you are working in insurance, you are working in health, you are working in legal, in education, future of work, HR, there are a lot of particular sectors where the sensitivity of error is higher.
Yeah.
So you cannot accept a mistake paying a salary. You cannot accept an error screening a candidate or supporting a patient on the health system, right? So in those cases, the quality assurance, like doing exhaustive and rigorous quality assurance, is not only important but necessary in order to take something to real production, right? So those are in practice, like the industries that we are working with, because it's what makes sense and where the need is right now in the market. Said that, I think that there's also, at some point with the evolution of the market, I think that this is something like having proper quality assurance would become like a standard for every industry. So not only for the ones that I already mentioned, that they are like not only more sensitive to errors, but also they have this culture in place of testing everything before impacting a real user, but also for other sectors, the same that as they test the software. For instance, you are a booking like a flight booking platform. You of course have like your quality, your CI/CD pipelines, your tests, whatever, because that's the standard in order to provide like a good product to your customers. So I think this is step by step gonna be standardized as well in this new way of building digital products, which are AI agents with a conversational interface. So you need as well to evolve your quality assurance technique. So instead of creating a script to test if you can book a flight from Barcelona to London for tomorrow, instead of that, and checking like if every button works and if the information is updated in the database, you like basically generate a synthetic user that is interacting in speech or voice with the system, and that is trying to book the same flight, but instead of using the software UI as we know it nowadays, he will be using like the conversational interface. And that's where we think like digital products are going, and therefore we think like the quality assurance would become relevant for everyone, like basically building on the space.
So you mentioned that a little bit earlier, you talked about sensitivity for errors. When these companies are coming to you and when you're testing with them, do you find it quite easy to build trust with the AI so that stakeholders are actually comfortable with the AI doing what it needs to do? Or do you find that they're still a little bit cautious about it and maybe they're over testing because they're so reluctant to surrender that validation process to the AI?
I think it's a bit of a mix. So companies start to like following also with the limitations that we were talking about before. They are every time more conscious on limitations, so that they decide better when you can power your process with Gen AI and that potentially will work, and when not. So you start to see less crazy use cases where obviously this is not going to work in the short term, but then you still see some cases where they are like just basically trying to fit Gen AI in the puzzle, investing more and more money, and you will already see that this is not going to be achieved in the short term for sure, because there are those limitations that exist. And if you are using AI to, I don't want to give a specific example, but if you are using it to decide if an immigrant should enter the country or not, I think that it's better to have a human in the loop in that particular case, for instance.
Perfect. It's so interesting. Unfortunately, Jorge, we are coming towards the end of the interview, but I always like to ask the very same question at the end of everyone. And that is, through your experiences, if there's someone watching this now thinking, I'd like to start up my own company, or I'd like to go into AI, what advice would you give them? What's the most important thing that they can do?
I'd say that if you are considering to build a startup and you are not building it, then this is probably not for you, because when you are like the thing is that it's like you will never be ready enough to build a startup. That's for sure. No one, I think, it's ready enough when they start the company. They just trust themselves that they are going to be like clever enough in order to make this work, even though they still don't know how. So when someone has an idea and is convinced that the idea is going to work, the entrepreneurial mindset is, I just build a company now. There's not going to be a better moment anytime soon or in the future. So if you are considering to build a startup, you have an idea that you are convinced about and you are not building it, then that's maybe not for you. If you are looking for the idea, then at the moment that you have an idea that you are convinced that it can work, then that's the best moment in order to create your company and build it.
Perfect. So don't wait, do it, right? That's the crux of the motivational speech. Jorge, I just want to thank you so much again for talking with us today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure as well.
That was Jorge Palomar Giner, co-founder and CEO of Galtea.